Hello everybody and welcome to the sixth video in our series of videos on the Age of Exploration. So in the last video we finished up with Portugal's main contributions to the Age of Exploration, and today we move on to the other big part of the Iberian Peninsula, Spain. So as always, our learning outcomes today, you should know 2 to 3 details about Queen Isabella of Castile's life. You should know 3 policies that Isabella pursued during her reign, and you should know what the Reconquista was. So Spain's contribution to the Age of Exploration changed the world. It actually changed 2 worlds, because these 2 worlds had grown up separately from each other. The old world, which included Europe, Africa and Asia, and the new world, which we would call North America and South America. While Portugal was aware of the area it was exploring, like mainly West Africa and the cities of the Indian Ocean trade network, Spain was about to stumble across an area that they nor any other Europeans at the time knew anything about, the Americas. Before we launch into Christopher Columbus and his accidental landings in the Americas, we are first going to take a look at the people who sponsored that voyage: Queen Isabella of Castile and King Ferdinand of Aragon. So at the time of Columbus's journey in 1492, Spain as a country did not exist. Broadly speaking, it was split up into these 2 areas: Castile in the yellow and Aragon in the red. You can see Portugal pretty much at the same borders that it has to this day in the west there. So in 1469, Queen Isabella was the next in line to the throne of Castile, but she ran off and married Prince Ferdinand of Aragon secretly, because her brother, who was the king, King Enrique IV, did not want there to be a union between Aragon and Castile. So Ferdinand had to sneak into Castile disguised as a peasant to marry Isabella. When Enrique died, Isabella became the queen in 1474, and despite a big civil war that was raging over her becoming queen, she proved herself to be a really great monarch. So many expected her to be under the control of her husband Ferdinand, but Isabella was adamant that she was in charge of Castile. Castile was a much bigger kingdom than Aragon. Castile had about 7 or 8 million people, while Aragon had a population of around 1 to 1.5 million. For years, the rulers of Castile had controlled the land and what policies were brought into the land. The rulers had been controlled by the richest families, but Isabella was determined to put a stop to that. So she brought the richest families under the control of the monarchy. This was the first of the many reforms that Isabella brought in. She brought in sweeping changes by overhauling the court system. She set up a new police force known as the Hermandad. She got the country's finances back in order. They had been a mess before she came in. And she reformed the government, where she promoted people based on merit as opposed to which family they belonged to. One of the most famous things that Isabella and Ferdinand did was they drove the last remnants of the great Islamic empire from Spain, and this is known as the Reconquista. So for centuries, Spanish of the north had been trying to drive the Muslim people of the south, known as the Moors, from Spain. You can see from the map here that the last big push was between 1210 and 1250, where this green area down here was reconquered, but there was still this area down at the bottom that was part of the great Islamic empire that held out. So in 1482, Isabella and Ferdinand started a campaign that would drive the last Moorish kingdom from the Iberian Peninsula, which is what we call Aragon, Castile and Portugal, this whole area. By 1492, they had finally expelled the Moors. You can see here, they finally drove them out of this area down here at the bottom in Granada. Isabel and Ferdinand were devout Catholics, and despite initially stating in the peace treaty with Granada that Muslims would be free to stay and practice their religion, they soon changed their minds. Partly they were under the influence of the newly established Spanish Inquisition, which we will look at later on when we're looking at the religious reformations that happened in the 16th century. Another policy pursued by Isabella that is quite a black spot on her record is the expulsion of the Jews from the country. So Ferdinand and Isabel expelled the Jews from the country. Now, anti-Semitism, this is a prejudice against people of the Jewish faith, and this was something that had happened in Europe for a long time. Persecution of the Jews at London Tower, for example, in 1278, where all the Jews were rounded up and killed at the Tower of London. But Spain was quite late to adopt this policy of anti-Semitism. But with the Reconquista in full motion and the setting up of the Inquisitions, the Jews were now expelled. This caused uproar in Aragon, which was Ferdinand's kingdom, where the Jewish people were a vital cog in the trading network that they had in the Mediterranean Ocean. And they really shot themselves in the foot here. This really hindered the economic growth of Aragon and Castile. These people were so valuable to the trade network that the Ottoman Emperor Sultan Bayezid II, he sent his own fleet to go pick up the Jewish people who were expelled and bring them back into his empire so that he could use them. So he later said how the Catholics' anti-immigrant stance had beggared their own country and enriched mine. So Isabella ruled from 1478 until her death in 1504, and she transformed her kingdom of Castile into a modern, powerful monarchy and laid the foundations for the founding of the country known as Spain. So her marriage to Ferdinand was a great success and a great partnership, with Ferdinand excelling in foreign affairs. The reason we focused on Isabella today is because her kingdom was the more powerful and heavily populated kingdom, and it was her kingdom that sponsored the voyage of Christopher Columbus, which would make Castile rich beyond their wildest dreams. So again, our learning outcomes for today: you should know 2 to 3 details of Isabella's life. So you should know that she married Ferdinand in secret, that she became queen in 1474, that she ruled until 1504, that her kingdom was named Castile, had a population of around 7 million. You should know 3 of the policies Isabella pursued during her reign. So we have the positive policies, such as taking control from the rich families in Castile, reforming the court system, setting up a police force, promoting people within the government who are based on merit. And then you should also know what the Reconquista was, which was the driving of the last Muslim kingdom from Granada in the south of Spain. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something good from this video.